Want to really show someone you love them this Valentine's Day? Well, these beef Wellingtons would definitely do it for me. Perfectly smoky reverse seared fillet steak using the meter Bluetooth thermometer. Ensure you get results like this every single time, and I'm going to show you how. Now, of course, we always use a beef fillet for a beef Wellington. It's the most tender cut. You want to cook it really quite rare, to be honest, you know. So we're going to have to take a lot of care over this whole cooking process, and that's why the meter is the perfect tool, because we can watch what's happening throughout the entire cook. As it's Valentine's Day, it's so nice to serve your loved one a little individual parcel of joy, and it's probably going to get you a tickle later on. So put the effort in now and the rewards will follow, I assure you, and if not, then you need to start looking for somebody else. So we're going to take the two biggest sections here of the fillet, so 1 and 2 here. This is what we call the tail. That can be used for a number of the other dishes, so I'm going to keep that to one side, and we're just going to concentrate on these two pieces. That isn't it. I'm going to season them with plenty of salt and pepper. Now, people always say put the pepper on later with the steak. That's when you're going to be cooking it really, really hot, because pepper burns. We're not going to be cooking this really hot. We're going to be cooking it at the lowest possible temperature to begin with, actually, because what we want is just for the smoke to do its job and for it to cook really quite slowly, and the internal temperature not to rise too much. So the pepper isn't going to be a problem. So I'm just going to always use a pepper grinder. Freshly ground pepper is so much better than the pre-ground stuff. We're going to take the probe and we're going to insert it across the grain into the middle like that, because that's exactly the line that we're going to slice it on, so you're not even going to notice it. Okay, make sure that the tip doesn't come out the other side. As much of the probe in there as we can. Probe number 2 across the grain there, like so. So you'll see that I brought the meat up to room temperature. So one sat at 18, the other one slightly less at 14, but that doesn't matter too much because we're going to monitor them individually. Right, so now the coals are just lit. I'm going to add in a couple of chunks of wood. Then we're going to put in the deflector plate. Drop that in there. And then we're going to be cooking completely indirect. So no direct heat is going to hit these steaks. We're going to put the steaks straight on, lid down. Right, so we're just going to set these up to cook beef fillets. So we're going to go for steak here, fillet. Okay, and we want it to be rare, but we want it a lot rarer than that. This is where it's going to end up. So I'm going to take this back. I'm going to stop it when it hits 30, because we'll let it cool. That will be enough time for some smoke to hit it, but it's only going to be half cooked, because remember, we're going to finish cooking it in the oven in the pastry. So these are porcini mushrooms. They've obviously been dried, so we're going to rehydrate them with some boiling water. So I'm going to take that up to the pint line, because I'm actually going to use that liquid that's left behind to make a delicious gravy later on. These ones are woodland mushrooms from Morrison's. We got those, but then these ones, I actually did forage myself yesterday. I was quite pleased. I was walking into Telford on the Silken Way and come across these. Now, they're quite easy to identify. They're called velvet shank, and you can see why, because on the stems, they look like velvet. A little bit of oil to start with in a pan. Now, mushrooms will soak this up, so you need to be quite liberal with the oil. You're chopping the mushrooms down really, really fine. So these mushrooms are going to go in. Give them a stir through. Keep working it down. It's almost nothing. I'm going to go in with these mushrooms. I can see there's 1 minute remaining. So I'm going to get those in, stirred through, turn the heat down. These can tick away. There's nothing's going to happen to these mushrooms while I go and tend to the meat. The pink colour, the pink smoke ring that we look at on our briskets or whatever, it's on this steak right there. So there's this one that needs to come off. The other one's just got a couple more minutes. So we're taking the deflector plate out, just a few seconds on each side. We'll make sure that we seal in all those juices, so they can just sit while we get everything else ready. These are sweating down nicely. We're going to help it along now with some butter. So there's probably about 75 grams of butter there. I'm going to work that down into those mushies. Just going to get a little bit of thyme in there. Thyme, butter, mushroom, steak. You know, it's gonna get you that tickle you're looking for. Right, so I'm making mini roasters here. So I've chopped the potatoes a little bit smaller than you normally would, just because they cook a little bit quicker. Then we fluff them up in the pan and straight into a hot tray of oil. We're ready to go and put our Wellingtons together. Potatoes in the oven and the meat is cooled down. We've left the meter probes in these pieces of meat. They haven't moved and they're going to remain in there as we cook these Wellingtons. Super thin ham. Okay, we're just going to layer a couple of pieces up. So we're just going to drop those down there. So 2 should be enough. Now next up, I'm going to go with these mushrooms. A thin layer of mushrooms onto the top of prosciutto. Now I'm going to take my steak, pop it flat down just at the edge of our prosciutto and mushrooms and just help to roll everything over. Stopping there, I'm just going to pack in around the edges. Just let the probe poke out the middle. And then I'm going to repeat the process with the second steak. Okay, next up I'm going to take some pre-rolled puff pastry and we're just going to roll that out to full extent. We place that down very lightly onto our pastry. It's going to be little bits that you need to tuck back in, that's fine. Okay, and we're going to take the corner now. I'm going to leave the probe just sticking out ever so slightly. Take one corner to the middle and the other corner to meet it. Just before we drop it down, just going to put a little egg wash in there just to make sure that it sticks. This corner over to here. So once your corners are rolled in, I'm just going to roll it over so it looks nice and neat and your partner won't even know that you're not a pastry chef. And then finally, going to give them both a really good egg wash. Plenty of that on there so they're really shiny when they come out. Just going to give these spuds a shake. They're looking really good, almost ready, I would say. That sound. Right, to make a really, really simple, easy gravy without boiling any bones or messing around, we're going to use, as I said before, the fluffy bits that are left from making those spuds. This is just the liquid that was left over from those mushrooms. Just going to keep whisking it until all of those potato fluffy bits have kind of incorporated. One beef stock capsule. Mate, those mushrooms make that insane, man. You wouldn't even know there was a beef stock cube in there. They're going to think you've slaved away for hours making that gravy. Basically, you've just used leftovers. Time to remove it from the heat. Oh, look at those. Beautiful. Oh, nice and crispy. It's gone through that fillet like butter. I forgot to tell you, it's told us that it's ready. Look at that. Absolute perfection. Look at that. And then our beautiful mushroom gravy. Serve that up to your loved one on Valentine's Day, and I guarantee you, you're going to be flavour of the month. Right, this is the other half. I'm going to have a little go. Not go on. That is like beef Wellington you've never tasted. The smoke on that, it's just nuts. You've got to try it. It's so good. I know I shouldn't eat it like this, but fuck it.